After back-to-back-to-back months of some really exciting World Cup qualifier action, we have a bit of a lull in the U.S. men's national team world because after the November qualifiers, the U.S. has to wait a couple months for the next upcoming January qualifiers. And for me, I think this is a perfect time to kind of reassess the pool and to kind of look at the pool from that 30,000 feet level and do another edition of our top 10 U.S. men's national team players right now. Remember, when we do the top 10 U.S. men's national team players right now, that is not based on potential. That is based on how they are performing right now. And yeah, it's kind of tricky whenever it comes to injuries and things like that. And we weigh club form and national team form, and there's going to be some situations where like MLS players are not going to be playing for a little while. There's a lot of complicated stuff going on, but in the end, ultimately, I think we come to a pretty conclusive top 10 list, and if I get anything wrong, it's definitely fought out in the comment section. And I think that my favorite part about doing this list is that from the first list to now, it just keeps getting tougher and tougher to pick these, especially once you get past like the 6 through 10 mark, because the competition is just getting that much better for these top 10 places. So all that more on this episode of the Yank Report. What's up? My name is Sam. This is Yank Report, the show we talk about the U.S. men's national team. If you're into the national team, hit that subscribe button. If you want to support the channel, hit the like button. Let's get into it for the number one pick. And for my money, let's call him the most disrespected player in the U.S. men's national team pool right now. I think for my money that's what he is, and that is Weston McKennie, the Juventus midfielder. And I say he's the most disrespected because, look, Tyler Adams always gets called the most important player for the national team, and I'll give him that. He is. And Christian Pulisic is always the star boy. He's always the golden boy, and he deserves that because he was the first big player to come out and really explode onto Europe. And he got the big money move to Chelsea, and he's won the Champions League, and he's just done all these amazing things. So kudos to him. Gio Reyna gets to be like the next golden boy, this player that could potentially be one of the absolute best players in the world. And sure, I'll give him that, but where does that leave Weston McKennie? Weston McKennie is this player that whenever he first broke out into the national team, I'm talking whenever, like that Gold Cup in 2019, he was a player that was seen as a lot like Jermaine Jones in that he was kind of undisciplined both in his tackles and his aggression and in his tactical sense, and we saw that in that goal against Mexico that Jonah Dos Santos scored, where Weston McKennie kind of gave up on his mark. But over time, Weston has developed and rounded out his edges to becoming this complete midfielder, this midfielder that is on the verge of being elite, and a midfielder that has gone to Juventus, a team that a lot of us didn't even think he would play for, and became one of the most important midfielders on their squad, a player that, when healthy, is starting just about every important game for them, and a player that Juventus is very likely going to move in this transfer window because they see him as one of the most valuable young players that they can get a lot of money from in a transfer and rebuild their squad, which is really struggling both in the defense and the attack, and they have a lot of aging stars that they're just not going to be able to get much from. Like, you're not going to get much of a transfer value from Giorgio Chiellini or a guy like that. Weston is that high-dollar player. I'm really excited to see what happens in this transfer window for West. There's a lot of rumors that he could be going to an EPL side. I think West in the EPL would be a ton of fun considering the style of play that you see in the EPL. I know whenever I'm watching Juventus, I often say, like, West is the only player that's allowed to run in Italy because it seems like he's the only one who's always moving, while in the EPL, everybody's always moving. I do put a lot of stock into the idea that so much of what we think about a player comes from the media that's being produced in that country. And in England, it is English-speaking country, and all the media that will produce will be in English. West is getting a lot of pub in Italy, but so much of it is in Italian. So we as Americans, most of us can't read Italian, so we don't get to see that. Whereas Pulisic, we get to see all the YouTube videos and media content, interviews, and all the tweets. Like, we know exactly what's going on with Christian game in, game out. So I'd love to see Wes in the EPL, and we get all that English media. I think Wes is going to be a major star whenever it comes to the World Cup. I think it's time that we put some respect on the man's name. He's been the most consistent player for the national team. He's been our most consistent player in Europe. He's been an absolute superstar. Wes is the best American player right now. At number 2, and of course, it was going to be the golden boy. It was going to be the pride of Pennsylvania, the candy man from Chocolate Land, Hershey, Pennsylvania's own Christian Pulisic, a guy coming off of a season where he was a major contributor to that Chelsea team that won the Champions League. This year, it's been a little bit slower. Now, in his first qualifiers with the U.S., we saw a Christian Pulisic that looked like he was just doing too much. He had the weight of the world on his shoulders. And in one of those qualifiers, he ends up getting injured and ends up missing a lot of time for Chelsea. Now, prior to that, he was contributing to that Chelsea squad. And since returning from injury, he seems to be slotted right back into that Chelsea squad. And let me say this. I see a lot of people arguing about Christian Pulisic being whether or not he's a starter for Chelsea. And I think I've watched a lot of this Chelsea team, and I don't think that there's really starters for Chelsea. I think that they compete in so many different competitions. They have so many games where they have to win that I think that they really rotate a lot, especially in that front three group. So I don't know if there's ever going to be like a starter for Chelsea. Even guys like Kai Havertz and Mason Mount that are major contributors for that team don't start every game. So I don't put a lot of weight into how often he starts. For me, it's just making sure that he's contributing, where he's starting 1 or 2 games every 3 games and is always seeing minutes. I think that's the most important thing, and that's what it's going to be like if Christian continues to play at Chelsea, which is absolutely one of the most elite clubs in the world right now, probably one of the 3 best clubs, if not the best club in the world. That's just kind of the reality of playing for Thomas Tuchel at the moment. Now, for the national team, Christian absolutely can be the number 1 player in the pool. He has that kind of talent. But for the national team, it's been kind of a mixed bag from Christian. Of course, after returning from injury, he gets that massive goal against Mexico that just sort of adds to Christian's legacy as just this savior for the U.S. men's national team. But beyond that, we haven't seen that masterful attacking force from Christian Pulisic that we see at Chelsea for the national team in this round of qualifiers. If you recall, in the last round of qualifiers, Christian Pulisic scored and assisted so many goals whenever he was 17 years old. He was basically the offense for the national team. In this round, like I said before, it seems like he's trying to do a little bit too much and really pushing in a team that was really trying to find its footing and trying to gel. At this point, during Christian's absence, it seems like the team has gelled a lot more, that MMA midfield is producing so much that hopefully Christian will be able to come back in and find a nice happy balance and become the absolute terror in CONCACAF that we know he can be. But as of right now, I still have Wes above him, and I have Christian slotted in at number 2. At number 3, I have a player that's going through a bit of turmoil right now for the first time in a long time, I think, and that is Tyler Adams. Tyler Adams, like I said before, is widely regarded as the most important player on this national team, and you see it whenever Tyler's on the field versus whenever he's not on the field. I believe Tyler has the most minutes logged in World Cup qualifying and has been absolutely phenomenal throughout World Cup qualifying. And Tyler is a leader both on the field and off the field. He does all the press, and whenever he speaks, he's a player that, as a U.S. men's national team fan, you can definitely be proud of. Now, the thing about Tyler is right now, RB Leipzig is going through a really tumultuous time. Of course, Jesse Marsch started off the season with Leipzig, and it did not go well. Now, during that early season, Tyler Adams got a lot of run. He was an every-game starter under Jesse Marsch. But within the last couple of weeks, he's been coming off the bench a little bit more. He seems to have lost his spot. He's had some high-profile errors. And to be fair, we forget that this guy's only 22 years old because he's been in Europe and just performing like a veteran for so long, and he carries himself like a veteran off the field that we forget that he's only 22 years old. I mean, at 22 years old, he would be a player that's trying to break into the national team for a lot of countries in the world right now, but for us, he is one of our leaders and one of our rocks. I'm excited to see what happens with Tyler's career because he's been at Red Bull. He's been in the Red Bull organization since he was a kid. Like, that's where he started out, and he ends up getting this transfer to Leipzig, kind of hits the ground running right there. There's been rumors that Tyler Adams could possibly be moving on from Leipzig at some point, and there would be something very interesting to see. There's always talk about whether Tyler Adams is like an elite defensive midfielder in the world, and there's comparisons about his passing and his ball control, as well as his ability to, his phenomenal ability to stop counters and his tackling and all that. at some point at 22 years old, with the amount of really high-end mileage that he has on his tire, somebody's going to come in with a big paycheck and pry Tyler Adams away from RB Leipzig. And I think that'll be really where it's interesting to see sort of where Tyler stacks up in the world of world soccer. But that may not happen this transfer window, and that may not happen anytime soon. That's just something that I think about. As of right now, he's still the most important player for the U.S. men's national team. He's still an absolute must-start. He's still a player that the team plays completely different whenever he's on the field versus whenever he's not. And as of right now, he's my number 3 in the best U.S. men's national team player right now. Now, up to now, it's been the guys that we've been talking about for years. You know, Weston, Christian, Tyler. These are the guys that are the absolute superstars in the squad. But I think over this season and over the course of this cycle of World Cup qualifying, we've had a player that has elevated his play to the point where he should absolutely be considered as one of the elite talents in the U.S. men's national team, one of those top echelon players. And that is Timo Weah. I've been following Tim Weah since he was 17 years old. And the thing that really made me fall in love about Tim Weah is, as a teenager, I was not that impressed with him. As a teenager for the youth national teams, he wasn't even an every game starter. He was a player that would come off the bench and would contribute. But Tim's a player that really worked hard on some of the weaknesses in his game and has come so far and continues to elevate. He's gotten to the point where he's at this little squad that's a very strong squad, not quite as strong as they were last year, but they're a very strong squad, and he's really become an integral part of that team. He's a player that I call like an operator, a player that whenever he gets the ball in the final third, he doesn't have his head down just trying to smash square pegs into round holes. He's a player that observes the field, sees where everybody is around him, and tries to make something happen, understanding just like the spatial awareness of where everyone is and what he needs to do on the field. You see those wonderful crosses that he puts in, the one that Christian Pulisic scored against Mexico, but he does that kind of game in and game out. He has this incredible ability to just create a yard of space for himself in order to get off a cross or get off a shot. He's wonderful getting to the end line. He just has a huge bag of tricks whenever he gets into that final third. And in the absence of Christian Pulisic and Gio Reyna, Tim Weah has really stepped up to become the offense for the U.S. men's national team. Now, Tim Weah, there's rumors that there's going to be some shakeup over at Lille, that there's going to be some players that are moving on, which is going to allow Tim Weah to kind of rise up in that squad and become an even more important player. Tim Weah is another very young player that has a lot of room to grow. So for the back half of the season, I'm really expecting Tim Weah to continue to elevate his game and to continue to become one of those top players in world soccer. And it's going to create a lot of issues for Greg Berhalter whenever we have all of our players healthy as to who to play on the field and who to leave on the bench to come as a sub. But that's where issues for Greg Berhalter worried about, not for me. For me, Tim Weah is the number 4 player in the U.S. men's national team pool right now. At number 5, I'm going with an absolute fan favorite, a player that has the silkiest handles that I think we've ever seen from a U.S. men's national team player, and that is Sergino Dest. Now, Sergino Dest is going to be in that category of maybe slightly controversial players, because both at club and country, there's been moments of absolute brilliance and there's been moments of doubt. Throughout Sergino's early U.S. men's national team career, it's been about whether he plays on the right or plays on the left, and it's been about how to make Sergino comfortable and whether or not he can defend. We've seen moments of absolute world-class brilliance from Sergino, but we've also seen moments where he's gotten absolutely burned away in CONCACAF in games where you'd really expect a lot more from him. Likewise in Barcelona, where it seems they're still trying to feel out Sergino Dest. And now we know Barcelona has all kinds of problems. They're having a lot of financial issues, and the issues at Barcelona are not Sergino Dest. But at the same time, they are questioning whether he's a player that they're going to build around moving forward, if there's a player that they want to sell right now, recoup some cash. And so that leaves Sergino Dest with a bit of an uncertain future. There has been criticism in the news about Sergino Dest defending at Barcelona. They have questions and doubts about that. Likewise for the U.S. men's national team. So he's not exactly a complete player, but I think he's a player that has shown that, he's absolute class on the ball. He's absolute class at maintaining possession. He's one of those players that you put in the category of unpressable. He seems like he can break out of any trap. Early on for the U.S. men's national team in World Cup qualifying, whenever we were really struggling to move the ball up the field, Dest was one of those players that we could just hit the ball to, and he would do something amazing and move the ball up the field and get us in a good position. So what happens with Sergino Dest in this window, in this transfer window over the winter, is going to be really interesting. It's going to be interesting to see whether Barcelona choose to move on from him right now and recoup some of that money. There's rumors that Bayern Munich, who's been rumored to be interested in Sergino for a long time, are still interested, so he could end up over there. There's a lot on the table potentially for Sergino Dest, but one thing that we know for sure is that if he's healthy, which he hasn't always been healthy, but if he's healthy, he's a no doubt starter for the U.S. men's national team because of the quality that he has, especially in the attack. Now, at 21 years old, I think that Sergino's got a lot of soccer ahead of him. I think he's a very unique guy that marches to the beat of his own drum, but I think that he can find it. I think that, they say like in basketball that the qualities that make you an elite attacker can also make you an elite defender. It's just about, the mentality that you carry into the game and how much effort you're going to put into that defense. I think Sergino's going to figure it out at some point and round into one of those absolute quality best in the world type of fullbacks. But at the moment, he's a player with phenomenal ability in the attack and some question marks whenever it comes to his defense. But that is good enough to make him the number 5 player in the U.S. men's national team right now. At number 6, I have a player that I've been going back and forth with. I kind of slept on this one, and ultimately I decided that I would include him in this list, and that is Gio Reyna. Now, Gio Reyna, of course, has been injured for a long time. He played in that first El Salvador World Cup qualifier and hasn't played since. So he's been out for a couple of months now. Recently, he's returned to training with Dortmund, which is a very, very, very uplifting thing to see for a U.S. men's national team fan, and he's fully expected to return to play for Dortmund after the winter break. Now, is it fair to put someone in the top 10 that hasn't played in months? I think for the most part, no, but I think in Gio Reyna's case, yes. And I say that because of how good he was in that one World Cup qualifier that he played in against El Salvador. And before that, in the Nations League. I mean, we saw moments of this kid. Let's call him a kid because he's still just a kid. This kid put the squad on his back. A U.S. men's national team squad that at that point was really struggling to create anything in the midfield, was really struggling to create anything in the attack. Very disjointed. Gio Reyna would get the ball and just do things that were amazing. He would take on the whole back line. He would dribble 3 dudes, get a shot off. He would find space when there was no space. He would just create when there was nothing. Nobody else was doing anything. Gio was doing something. In that one game against El Salvador, all the chances that we had were because Gio Reyna just did something absolutely special. That's the kind of player that he is. We talk about, world class, and we throw that around a lot, elite, whatever that means to you. If you want to start an argument on the internet, say somebody's world class, because everybody has a different definition of world class. I was talking to a guy the other day that said Jorginho was not world class, even though he's like a Ballon d'Or finalist. Anyway, I believe Gio Reyna is that player that's going to be that first ballot unanimous world-class player for the U.S. men's national team. He's got that kind of quality, and for him, it's just going to be about getting more and more minutes and growing into the game. But when he's on the field, he's just an absolute difference maker. Now, there's been a lot of question from the U.S. men's national team fans speculating about where Gio is going to play upon his return. I know I just did a video with Filippo, tactical manager, and he's a big proponent of Gio coming into the midfield and playing one of those 8 spots. I still maintain that he's going to continue to be a winger because he's just got that quality in the final third that whenever you're that good, they tend to not bring you further away from the goal. But he does offer a lot of positional flexibility. For him, it's just going to be about returning to the field and getting back into the form as soon as possible, which I think he'll be able to do because he's just that good. Gio's a player that I think deservedly, and whenever he's in form, he's a lot higher on this list. But as of right now, since he's been injured and out for so long, I put him at the number 6 spot, specifically at the number 6 spot because I think 6 is where we draw a line for the U.S. men's national team. I think we have 6 elite players, like 6 like cream of the crop, top quality players, and then beyond that, we have a lot. That's whenever it starts to get into the very good player category. So I'll put Gio at the bottom of the elite player category, and we move on at number 7 to the start of the very, very good player. And at number 7, we have another teenager and another player who's a slight enigma, and that is Yunus Musah. Now, Yunus Musah has put in some performances for the U.S. men's national team that have fans losing their minds. I mean, he's been absolutely stellar. For a squad that's really struggled to move the ball from the defense to the attack, Yunus Musah has been an absolute superhero with his ability to turn and run at defenders and just progress the ball up the field. He has a tireless work ethic. He's, as the Scuff podcast likes to say, he's great in the cage match. He's been an absolute terror in the midfield for the U.S. men's national team, which makes everyone wonder, why is he not playing midfield for his club? In fact, why is he not getting more minutes in general for Valencia? He's kind of had an up and down season for Valencia, and of course he's been playing in that right wing position. I know a lot of folks have said that there's a Spanish national team player playing in the midfield where Musah would be playing if he was playing in that position, but it just seems like Musah has so much potential in moving to midfield, and for that Valencia side, it's kind of crazy to me that you either don't want to put him there or don't want to move him on and get some value for him for a club that really could use him. I think Yunus Musah is just that player that just has so much potential in front of him, has so much growth in front of him. A player that I think that the greater fan base is just going to fall in love with whenever they really get to know him, whenever we get closer to the World Cup. A player that has the potential to be a star on and off the field. And, you know, I say that the top 6 is the elite players, and after that, it's getting into the world of the very, very good players. I think Musah has that potential to join that elite set of players. I don't think he's there quite yet. I think we need a little bit more consistency from him on the club side, but he's right there. He is right there, and by the time we come with the next list in a few months, he might be in that list of absolute elite U.S. men's national team players. At number 8, we have a guy that's sort of come out of nowhere in the last, let's say, 10 months, for me at least, and become an absolute rock for the U.S. men's national team, and that is the defender from Atlanta United, Miles Robinson. Now, prior to Nations League, Miles Robinson was considered like a player that was a depth center back piece for the U.S. men's national team. But following some injuries, Miles Robinson gets his opportunity in the Gold Cup, and since then has just been the absolute rock in the defense for the U.S. men's national team. Now, prior to that, everybody was asking the question, who is going to pair with John Brooks in Qatar? Now, people are asking, who is going to pair with Miles Robinson? He's gotten so good that he's gotten to the point where I see the conversation start, is Miles Robinson overrated? Or people expecting too much from Miles Robinson? And I don't think that he's overrated. You know, he's never going to play the ball like Giorgio Chiellini or like Thiago Silva or one of these players that's an absolute master with the ball at their feet, but athletically, he is absolutely dominant. Aerially, he's absolutely dominant. We've seen him shut players down in one-on-one situations, just be exactly what the doctor ordered for the U.S. men's national team, and just hasn't put a foot wrong. There's very little to criticize. Now, there are some rumors that there are Bundesliga teams interested in Miles Robinson. He's still only 24, which I know in U.S. men's national team years is quite old, but in center back years and in, you know, world soccer years, 24 is like just barely entering your prime. So there's still a lot of soccer ahead of Miles Robinson. It would be quite the story if Miles Robinson ends up at a Bundesliga side and starts being a dominant force over there. I think it would be a good thing for the national team, considering I don't really want Miles Robinson to take a bunch of months off heading into the Winter World Cup qualifiers. But, you know, whatever happens, I think Miles Robinson is going to continue to be one of the first names on the team sheet for Greg Berhalter. He's just been that good, and that allows him to be the number 8 spot. At number 9, I have another fan favorite, a guy that puts a lot of numbers on the stat sheet, and that is Brenden Aaronson. Now, Brenden Aaronson has gotten a lot of run recently because of the injuries to Gio Reyna and to Christian Pulisic, and he's also been stellar for his club at Salzburg that have led to a lot of transfer rumors that Brenden could potentially be moving on to an even bigger side and an even stronger league. Now, the reason why Brenden is a little bit further down the list is because as better and better players have come into the side, as Tim Weah has really gone on his hot streak, and Ricardo Pepi has looked really good, and, the MMA midfield has been cooking with grease, Brenden Aaronson, some of his weaknesses in the final third have kind of come to light. We know the kind of hustle that we're going to get from him. We know the kind of pressing that we're going to get from him. We know that it's going to be a relentless effort from Brenden Aaronson for 90 minutes, and we know that whenever he gets into position and gets the ball at his feet in front of goal, he can put a shot on frame and can score goals. However, we saw in some of the recent qualifiers that he's not quite as class in the final third as like a Tim Weah or even a Christian Pulisic or a Gio Reyna or anything like that. I understand that is high cotton to put him in, but at the same time, that is where he is right now for the U.S. men's national team. I do think that he's still firmly entrenched in that number 4 winger spot. I don't think that he's has to worry about guys like Paul Arriola or even Jordan Morris or Conrad De La Fuente coming and taking his spot right now. I think he's solidified in that spot. But I do see a bit of a drop-off whenever we go from Pulisic to Reyna to Weah to Brenden Aaronson. Now, we've come to the number 10 spot, and this for me is always the difficult position because you're ending up in a spot where you're having to leave players off the list, and there's a lot of really quality players that I haven't named right now. There's some honorable mentions out there. Should we talk about Ricardo Pepi, who, as an 18-year-old, has come into the national team and has provided goals for a squad that's really struggled to get goals, been the most consistent striker that we've seen in a very long time, a player that is one of the hottest players in world football right now, a player that has transfer rumors to go for $13 million to Atletico Madrid, has rumors in the Bundesliga, has rumors in the EPL, has rumors all over the place. So his future is a little bit uncertain at the moment. And definitely deserving of a top 10 spot, but that's not who I'm going to go with. Another honorable mention would be Anthony Robinson, a player that, the left back position for the U.S. men's national team has been a question mark for as long as I can remember. But Anthony Robinson has had some of the best games at left back that I've seen from an American left back maybe ever. And in World Cup qualifying, I think he definitely solidified his place. However, in that last game, that last round of World Cup qualifiers, we saw some very shaky moments from Anthony Robinson. Despite that, I think he's still the left back for the U.S. men's national team right now, even though I wonder if Joe Scally might have something to say about that. Maybe Joe Scally deserves an honorable mention. Maybe this goalie war that we have, Zach Steffen and Matt Turner, it's just so heated on Twitter right now. It seems like every move that these keepers make is under the microscope, and there's a lot of passion on both sides of the argument. For me, I've always maintained that I think that they're both very good. They have different qualities, and I'm not really too thrown off of either one of them getting the lineup. I think one thing a lot of people miss about Zach Steffen is whenever you listen to the interviews from the players, they always list Zach Steffen as one of the emotional leaders on the team, as one of the locker room leaders on the team, and I think he's that field general. If you remember whenever Tim Howard was in goal, he was always barking orders from the back, just organizing the defense, and I think we get the same thing from Zach Steffen, and we don't quite get that from Matt Turner. Just another caveat to throw out there in the ongoing debate. But who is my number 10? My number 10 is John Brooks, a player that really got disrespected, I feel like, in the last round of World Cup qualifiers whenever Greg Berhalter elected not to bring him in. But a player that has just been doing his John Brooks thing in the Bundesliga and now in the Champions League. I'll say it, there is absolutely no center back that we have or maybe have ever had that has the quality and distribution that John Brooks has. You see the comps out there where he's just playing these long diagonals all over the pitch. And whenever John Brooks is not on the field for the U.S. men's national team, we don't get that distribution from the back from the U.S. men's national team. I know people talk about Miles Robinson's quality on the ball and Chris Richards' quality on the ball, but I have not yet seen any player reliably play those long diagonals the way that John Brooks does. He might play long diagonals better than even the MMA midfield does. He just has that kind of quality. Now, Greg Berhalter says that his form has kind of slipped and he needs to get back into the squad. I wonder if there's things going on in the locker room or, we don't really know what's going on behind the scenes for the U.S. men's national team. But I have a strong suspicion that moving forward, John Brooks is going to be a part of the squad, that was just a little blip on the radar that we'll forget about next year whenever it's World Cup time. And I think for me right now, John Brooks is the number 10 player on the U.S. men's national team. So that's my list right now. It's always difficult to make a top 10 list for the U.S. men's national team, especially right now now where the team is playing so well and there's so many players that are doing well both for the national team and for their club teams. I know that this is always a video that's littered with hot takes, so in the comment section, if you agree, disagree, think I left a player off, let me know in the comment section. If you have an opinion on that Matt Turner, Zach Steffen debate, let me know your side of things in the comment section. As always, si puede hablar español, dígame un comentario en español. I do want to address one thing before I go. I had a lot of comments about the amount of commercials in the last video with Filippo, and I didn't know that I had control over the commercials. Like, honestly, I always just left it up to YouTube to program them, but it seems like they're adding a lot more commercials than they used to. It was like set to every 5 minutes, which was way too much. So I will definitely be monitoring that in the future, and I'll make sure that there's not that many commercials in these videos. Like, I think it's fair to have some commercials, but every 5 minutes is way over the top. So I'll definitely be dialing that back. And if it returns to that, if I forget, please leave me a comment and let me know so I can go in and remove those. Guys, thank you so much for watching. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. If you would like to support the channel, hit the like button. If you want to directly support the channel, you can become a member. You can get access to some cool badges that kind of denote how long you've been a member of the channel. If you become a tier 2 member, you can get shout outs in the video like this. Thank you to Mike Irish, who just became a tier 2 member, and of course Manuel Oliveras, who's been supporting from the very beginning. So shout out to those two guys for supporting the Yank Report. Guys, thank you so much for watching. My name is Sam, and this is the Yank Report.